Remember back in 2012 when Sony tried to turn Spider-Man into a cinematic universe with the Amazing Spider-Man movies? And that didn't end well for them. And now they're stuck trying to make a Spider-Man cinematic universe. To be honest, I have no idea if they even know themselves what they're doing. But I thought it was ridiculous, so I wanted to try and make my own Spider-Man cinematic universe. And by the way, this will be a 6-part series where I go over a Spider-Man cinematic universe of my own. Now, I should probably mention before I start yeah, I kept thinking of my own Spider-Man cinematic universe for a long time, and I kept changing ideas, so by the time this video is out, I could have changed my opinion on what I want for my Spider-Man cinematic universe, and I'm also still kind of thinking about some things that should be done for the Spider-Man cinematic universe. So yeah, I just wanted to get this video out as quick as possible. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to see all the future parts, and yeah, this is part 1, by the way. So yeah, I should probably begin. And also, this is a Spider-Man cinematic universe, so I'm not going to include any other Marvel superheroes, even though I do really like the idea of having Spider-Man team up with other Marvel superheroes. That's not happening in this universe. And this universe is going to be made up of characters that are connected to Spider-Man. So yeah, and some of them might not have even been featured into a movie, unless they're the Spider-Verse characters. Like, you know, they probably would most likely have been featured in a movie, like the Spider-Verse films. But they're not in the beginning of this universe. So yeah, the Spider-Verse was an idea I was thinking of having for the main plot of the cinematic universe, but I decided to just leave the Spider-Verse till later. So I'll begin. So yeah, this first movie is going to be a Spider-Man movie because it's a Spider-Man cinematic universe, and they haven't, in the real Spider-Man cinematic universe, they don't actually have a Spider-Man. They started it with a Venom movie, but I think that's ridiculous, so it'll start with a Spider-Man movie, and I think they should just call it The Amazing Spider-Man, because that's what the comics were called. And this is not going to be an origin story, but it will feature Spider-Man early on into his days of crime fighting, and it'll take inspiration from the 3 live-action Spider-Man movies, mainly Spider-Man 1, The Amazing Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Homecoming are the main inspiration. And it won't feature the origin story because we've seen it so many times, but I think it's okay to just reference it since this is just the beginning. And it'll kind of introduce the main characters. It'll have Peter Parker, who is just new into his career as Spider-Man. It'll have Harry Osborn as his best friend, and also the main connection to one of the main villains. But I won't start talking about him yet. Then there's also Mary Jane Watson, or MJ, who is Peter Parker's crush, slash, you know, will become his girlfriend. But yeah, now I would have had Gwen Stacy as Peter Parker's love interest to begin with, but I didn't want to adapt the death of Gwen Stacy's story because I don't really like it that much, and I just decided to save Gwen Stacy for someone else. P.S. He may or may not be a Spider-Man as well. But anyway, this film will also feature Flash Thompson, just as a very unlikable school bully. Even though that he probably won't have much of a role, but, you know, he will become a bit better and learn throughout the films to be a better person. You know, a bit like, how in the comics he becomes a better person, but for now he's just average school bully. And then there's Peter Parker's mentor, Otto Octavius, who is the main villain of the first movie, which Dr. Octopus will be going a bit insane because Norman Osborn is kind of like his like he was used to be friends with Norman Osborn, but then eventually they had a falling out, and he wants revenge, then becomes Dr. Octopus. Also, J. Jonah Jameson is featured in this movie as, Peter will get a job at the Daily Bugle just to afford money for Aunt May because of the bills and, you know, classic money problems that Spider-Man has. And, yeah. Same old average Spider-Man movie stuff, but also Norman Osborn is featured, and in this movie it's kinda hinted to that he's a bit of a psychopath and a criminal, and there are hints that he does have a bit of a criminal record, but the police can't arrest him because they have no proof that he's a criminal. And therefore someone's trying to figure this out, and this is Black Cat, who is going to be introduced in this movie as well, and you know, she has never been featured in a Spider-Man movie before, so I thought, why not just introduce her at the beginning? And plus, you know, Spider-Man could think whether or not he should go date MJ, or actually, you know, date someone who is more of a, more like him as a superhero, or more of a vigilante, anti-hero of some sort. But yeah. Anyway, the main part of this movie is going to really just feature Otto Octavius and Peter Parker's friendship get explored. They're going to have their friendship and show that it's going to be hard for Peter to fight him because Otto doesn't know that Peter's Spider-Man, but Peter knows that Otto is Doc Ock, and, well, that's kind of obvious. And when Otto goes to jail, Peter is kind of feeling a bit upset and feels sad that he could have prevented this but couldn't. Also, I just think that maybe Spider-Man should get a more classic red and blue costume instead of just trying to change it. Just make it close enough to the comics, but also just, you know, make it like some sort of just make it similar to the if you make it if Sony makes it like the classic comic costume, and also makes it a bit like it was just a bit homemade a wee bit, like Peter made it himself, like, and had very little resources, and that could be a good costume. And of course the costume can get improved as time goes on. But yeah, basically that's the first movie, basic Spider-Man movie with Doc Ock as the villain, but also it kind of sets up that Norman Osborn's evil. And then the second movie is going to be a sequel to that, which will be called The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But yeah, I just couldn't really think of an interesting title, so I just decided to call it The Amazing Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. Kind of a bit like Andrew Garfield's movies. But anyway, this movie will feature Mysterio as a side villain, but feature Electro as the main villain. Yeah, I just wanted to include Mysterio, but I didn't know where else to include him, so I just decided to make him be a side villain in this film, because I also really like Electro with his powers. They kind of look cool. And in this film, we'll kind of be a bit more exploring Peter Parker's character, and also exploring Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn's friendship. Well, not really friendship, since like they're father and son. But then, you know, I also just decided to have Norman actually, Norman and Harry would have a good relationship. They wouldn't actually be like, it wouldn't be the average, Peter Parker is better than Harry Osborn, and, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah. No, actually in this film, it's like that, yeah. So in this film, they have a good relationship, and, and eventually, at some point in this movie, Norman will hire Peter and meet him for the first time, although Peter kinda is a bit, thinking, whether or not he should trust Norman, because he does hear that he has a bit of a criminal record. But Norman's impressed by him, and that starts to make Harry jealous, and he's kind of annoyed at that. And, yeah. Basically, it's just a basic sequel, and also in this film, I forgot to mention that Harry Osborn and Mary Jane would have been dating, but eventually, due to some sort of events, so yeah, at the end of the second film, Peter and MJ are gonna get together and become a couple, and this kind of just makes Harry annoyed. And then, worst of all, his dad is kind of more interested in Peter. But yeah, anyway, I just also decided that Peter gets older as each of these movies pass. Like each of the movies, like each movie in the trilogy, Peter gets older. At least for this part of the universe. Anyway, yeah, what was I gonna say now? Oh yeah, anyway, at the end of this movie, Electro and Mysterio both go to jail, since they're evil, and then they meet with Doc Ock at the end, and like, let's just say there's a post-credit scene of Doc Ock saying, do they want to team up and get revenge on Spider-Man, setting up a Sinister Six movie. Although, it won't happen in this part of the universe, at least not yet. And then the next movie, we're taking a break from the Spider-Man side of things and exploring a side character. Well, not a side character, like a spin-off movie. And the spin-off movie is going to be about Black Cat, because she was introduced in the first movie. And she's going to be on the run, because she broke in and did some illegal things to some person, like some criminal of some kind, like a billionaire criminal, that sort of thing. And then this billionaire hires Silver Sable to go hunt down Black Cat, and then Black Cat and Silver Sable eventually become friends and then team up to fight the real villain, who is this rich billionaire, which is Hammerhead, who will be the main villain of this movie. Now, in case you're all annoyed saying that Kingpin would have been a bit better because of that sort of thing, he's a rich billionaire criminal, but I decided to save Kingpin for later on in the universe for another certain Spider-Man character, who, in my opinion, I think should fight him since, well, I don't know, it's just that I wanted him to fight Kingpin. But anyway, I'm not going to say who this character is, and he's not going to be introduced in the first 3 phases of this universe, like that sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah. Also, no, this character's not Daredevil, because he's not a Spider-Man character. I feel like that people should probably know this already, that Daredevil is not a Spider-Man character. Don't even know why I'm saying this, just decided to mention Daredevil. But anyway, so yeah, and this film will mainly explore Black Cat's personal life, being a criminal and that sort of thing. But yeah, and this film's events will happen around the same time as the events of the second Spider-Man movie, which is why she won't be in that movie or in the next one or something like that. But yeah, stuff like that. And that's probably all I have to say about this film. Spider-Man will probably get a few mentions, and maybe Black Cat could say that she sort of likes Spider-Man, but still, probably at this time that Peter and MJ is already dating, so I don't think that's going to be good for her. And yeah, I think that's it. And now, this part of the universe is nearly done. Like, this video is almost done. Just 2 more movies to mention, and I think that's it. So yeah, and now this next film is going to be the main part of this universe, like the main film of this video, at least, which is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man 3, which is also going to be where Spider-Man fights his arch nemesis, the Green Goblin. And I was considering having Green Goblin be like the big bad, like Thanos, for this universe, but I decided against that because I don't know what I could have done, like that type of thing. I then thought I now have a good idea of what I want to do, but anyway, so yeah, this film will kind of be about Peter's last year in school, and then he's trying to get into college, a bit like Spider-Man No Way Home, and then he's also worrying about Aunt May, so he's thinking of getting a full-time job at Oscorp because the Daily Bugle isn't paying that much. But then, yeah, in this film, Norman fully becomes the Green Goblin, and then Harry is also kind of just like annoyed at him because he won't, because Norman never really has shown Harry like the like a proper love and showed that he's proud of him, and that's going to be like something that is going to just be a bit bad. And then we learn the full story about that Norman was a bit of a criminal, and he has illegal science experiments in a secret laboratory, and he's well, just he's just saving this stuff. And then that's gonna be the Green Goblin tech and the Goblin formula, and Norman's going to use that to become the Green Goblin. And then also in this film, MJ and Peter break up because MJ feels as that Peter's hiding things from her, and Peter is trying to convince her that he's not, even though he is, because he's Spider-Man, and he's not telling her because he doesn't want anyone to know. And also, in this film it shows that Peter is actually starting to become good friends with Norman, and he may actually think that Norman's a good mentor for him. And also I just thought that maybe throughout this film Peter could visit Otto Octavius in jail, and him, like, Otto doesn't know he's Spider-Man, at least not yet, but Otto then gets angry at Peter because he's actually becoming friends with his enemy. And then eventually the Green Goblin will terrorize Spider-Man throughout the film, and then Norman will figure out that Peter's Spider-Man and try to kill Aunt May, but Peter saves Aunt May. Now, in Spider-Man No Way Home, it kind of just, you know, kind of would sound a bit more tragic because Aunt May was killed by the Green Goblin, and Peter's meant to live with the guilt because he couldn't save Aunt May. But I just decided to save Aunt May to continue as a character in this film, and in this universe, because I thought she should give Peter some great support for him. And also in this film she's going to find out that Peter's Spider-Man, and this is towards the final battle, and yeah, Peter finds out Norman's the Green Goblin and tries to convince him to become a good person again, because he knows that he's not all a bad person. But Norman doesn't care and tries to kill Peter anyway, and ends up killing himself. And this is going to be the part where Peter feels guilty because he tried to help Norman and he died, and Peter couldn't do anything about it. And once Harry finds out about this, he wants to have revenge on Spider-Man. This is kind of why I had Green Goblin be the villain of this film, because Harry would then go on to have want to take revenge for Norman's death. And yeah, I kind of feel like this is kind of a good idea to have Harry become the Green Goblin at some point in this universe. But yeah, until then, he's angry at Spider-Man and wants to have revenge, and then he decides to just stay out of college and then become to just become the new CEO of Oscorp, and then Peter ends up finishing up school. He completes it by the end of this movie, and he moves on to college, and he has a chance to get back with MJ, but he decides not to take it because he saw Aunt May nearly died because Green Goblin knew he was Spider-Man, so he just decided to just not become a couple of MJ again, because if anyone knew he was Spider-Man, then she could be in danger, and this is kind of something that Spider-Man is about, or something like that, but still. And that's kind of it, really. Peter moves on, and by the end of the third movie, he makes a new costume that shows that he is grown and matured and is ready for what's next. Joke's on him. What's next is the Sinister Six, and you know, stuff like that. But those types of stories will be continued in part 2 and 3, and however long I make this series of my Spider-Man cinematic universe. But before that, we have one final movie, which is I was wondering if I should have done this here in Phase 1, but I just decided to do it anyway, because right now I don't really know any other Spider-Man characters that I can give a movie to that isn't really Black Cat and any Spider-Verse characters. And this is kind of a Spider-Man character, but he was introduced like back in the 90s, or maybe 70s, if you've read that one issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. So anyway, it's a Scarlet Spider movie where it's about the Ben Reilly, who thinks he's the real Spider-Man, and he wears a costume similar to the actual Spider-Man's costume. And then eventually in this film, he realizes he's a clone of him, and he feels like he's a fake, and he feels like his whole life was a lie, literally. So he then decides to stop the person who has been cloning Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and defeat him once and for all, who will be the main villain of this movie, who will be the Jackal. Now, Peter Parker himself won't appear, but he will be mentioned, and of course he'll play a big role, because it's a Spider-Man clone, and someone who wants to clone Spider-Man, of course. But anyway, the Jackal will be the main villain, and he'll want to clone Spider-Man, and I'll just say that by the end of this movie, he gets killed by Scarlet Spider, and then Scarlet Spider wants to learn how to be better, so he goes into hiding and changes his name to Ben Reilly, because, you know, that's it. And yeah, that's kind of it, really. And yeah, so the Jackal's origin story, I could just say he was a former Oscorp employee who was fired because Norman Osborn didn't like his cloning technology, and then, well, yeah, and then he wanted to take revenge because he will have probably will get an emotional tie to Spider-Man, and that's kind of it, really. So yeah, that's it for that film and Phase 1 in general of my Spider-Man cinematic universe. Part 2 will be my next video coming, who knows when. I don't really know when I'm gonna make that video, but it will be soon, I hope. I will try to probably get it out by next week, so make sure to subscribe to see it. And also, I could keep changing my mind about what I want for this Spider-Man cinematic universe, so eventually, maybe once I have the whole series completed, I could, well, that could be it. I could have another idea for the Spider-Man cinematic universe, and I rewrite the idea, and then that's it. That's it. don't have it until I have then just realized that I have already made the Spider-Man cinematic universe, and then I have a completely different idea of what I want. So I might eventually, maybe in some time, once the series is done, and maybe who knows when, if I get more ideas for a different idea for my Spider-Man cinematic universe, I could make another one, like maybe a year or two later, maybe. Who knows? But yeah. So that's it for the video. If you like my Spider-Man cinematic universe, make sure to subscribe, because part 2 will be coming who knows when. Part 2 and part 3 will be my next 2 videos, and then I'll take a break and do part 4 and 5 and 6 at some point down the line. But until then, that's it for now, and make sure to subscribe to see part 2 and 3 of my Spider-Man cinematic universe, and I'll see you in the